Masters of innovation.
Looking towards the future with anticipation, raising up the technological conversation from the east to the west and all across the nation. If knowledge is the cure, then we got the medication. We're the masters of innovation, the masters of innovation. We're the masters of innovation, the masters of innovation.
Welcome to the Masters of Innovation. Here with the cutting edge knowledge you need to break through COVID-19, everything that's going on right now. I'm Garrett Wagner, your entrepreneurial CPA co-host, here to just rock it with the man that's just coming to us no longer from a bunker, coming to us from his library of just books upon books upon books. Joe Brunsman, CLP Brokers. Joe, what's up with the library showcase today? You moved out of your bunker?
That was my study, my salon, if you will.
So in your bunker, you've got a study?
I do. It's a very sophisticated bunker. It's very continental.
That is how the fancy other half of the world lives, my friends. Everybody watching, your bunker needs a study, a salon. So Joe, before we get into your decorating tastes, remote work, everyone has to do it right now. Things are starting to open up, but remote work's going to continue on the rise. Mm-hmm. But like we said, we're seeing an increase in cybersecurity hacks, data breaches. So I thought we could kind of pick your brain, pick from your knowledge. What are the things that firms should be doing today to make their remote workforce, their virtual workforce, their data, their security, their privacy more secure? What are the tips? What are the tips you got for us, my friend?
So beyond, a well-staffed bunker, as I sit here in New Zealand, there's really kind of a couple things that really all businesses should consider. So I kind of just jotted down a quick list here before we started. So I'll run through my list here. First one is really tracking your network assets. So why is that important? Well, previously you had this bubble and you knew that this bubble was your network. And anybody that tried to get into that bubble, right, you could filter that. But now your bubble is potentially worldwide. People coming from all types of different networks, all types of different devices, probably devices you've never heard of, definitely devices you've never seen. So you just need to make sure that you're actually tracking who's got what and how they're getting into your network. So tracking those network assets. So that way, if some erroneous request comes into your network from a device you've never seen or a device that you haven't whitelisted to be able to access that network, potentially it's legitimate and that person had to switch from their laptop to their tablet to work on some business. But regardless, that's something that you should be able to first block and then handle appropriately as your network is set up. So it's an easy win.
And that's pretty similar to what we see right now on the consumer side of trust this device. So this is the first time you're logging into your bank from a new device. Maybe you got a new phone, new cell phone. Mm-hmm. It says, should we trust this device? Kind of same idea. You want to trust the devices that are connecting to it. Before, there was only so many. Now it's expanded. Make sure you know what devices are connecting to your network. Good best practice. That makes sense.
Sure. Second one is VPN management. And really making sure that your IT staff or your outsourced IT staff is understanding that, a VPN is not just, set it and forget it, right? This isn't the rotisserie chicken. You need to make sure that those settings are appropriate, that they're up to date.
Okay, Joe, hold on. Joe, I gotta pause you right there. Okay, there's a very key thing you just said. Just to make sure I understood it.
Rotisserie chicken.
Yeah, so that an IT role in security, wherever it is not akin to a rotisserie chicken where you set it and forget it. Is that your big takeaway here? That this is not slow cooker, set it in the crock pot and walk away. You're telling me that cybersecurity needs to be actively managed and not just I plugged it in, I'm good?
Yes, this is not the George Foreman grill. So, VPNs do come with various security settings. And I think what's burning a lot of people right now is they set up these VPNs, but they didn't dig into the security settings. And so if there's a vulnerability in any of these systems, especially via transmission, someone's going to find that vulnerability. They're going to take advantage of it, and it's going to be really hard to track down. So definitely it is not a chicken.
Okay. Definitely not a chicken. That makes sense. Don't be lazy. Be on top of it. Which I think leads to our next one. I'm gonna steal this next one for you. I'm gonna lead into it. It's very important. Good practices around cyber hygiene. And that's stuff that we should have been doing inside the firm when we're on site. But it's even more important now that we're remote. So Joe, what do firms need to do when it comes to cyber hygiene to finally pay attention to this? Because we've been talking about it for a while. What do they got to do to actually embrace this?
So probably just broad brush here. One thing I'd recommend is that you get your IT staff or your outsourced IT staff just a quick kind of, a checklist of good ideas that everyone should be doing at their home. So basic things like, what's a strong password? How do you change the password on your router, right? How do you access the security settings on your router? These are things that, technologically we've been doing for like a decade. So, if I need to change the password on my router, I'll just go do it. But not everybody has that capability or that skill set. Just like I don't do my own tax return for obvious reasons. I have a CPA that does those because it's not in my wheelhouse or my skill set. So that's just kind of like a real basic, make sure that people just understand really the fundamentals of security and just how to go in and change administrative passwords. That's a super easy one.
Well, I think
the next thing
with that too, people might not realize this, but there's websites out there that just have default passwords listed. It's just a list of like, here's all different kind of home Wi-Fi routers. Here's the default username and password. And it's super easy for the hacker just to be like, oh, I figured out that Joe in his house has a Linksys WRG16 router. Oh, what's the default username and password? Oh, it's admin and password all lowercase. Let me try and get in. Oh shit, it worked. I'm in. I own Joe. So people don't kind of realize that, like you said, Joe, we've been doing it for so long, but it's the simplest stuff sometimes can have the biggest impact.
It's true. And even for, those of us that are tech nerds that love this stuff, we're humans. And, even for us, it's nice just to have a quick list of like, okay, yeah, I did that. Oh, you know what? I forgot to change the, admin password on my router. So let me just go do that right now, right? Just a quick reminder for everybody. On top of that, employee training. So
Wait,
anybody.
What was that again?
Employee training.
Yes.
Employee training. Not a quick, super boring Zoom meeting of, some 85-year-old partner getting in front of the group on camera and saying, hey, don't click on bad things, right? People have heard that for years. It doesn't make a difference. No one's going to listen to them. You really need to start actually investing in true employee training. So not only would I argue that it's actually a requirement under the FTC Safeguards rule for every CPA firm to be doing that anyways, even if you ignore that, it's still a great idea because you need to make sure that you're staying up to date with the most relevant threats, that it's engaging, it's ongoing, it's somebody different, it's something where the partners can check in, right? Hassle people or hassle the fellow partners if they're not doing the training. And you can start getting metrics on who's clicking on the wrong thing, right? And try and fix those particular patterns and create that culture of security inside the firm. Whereas if it's just the old guy standing up there, or if it's just me coming in once a year saying, hey, don't click on the wrong thing, that's just not going to cut it, unfortunately. The other part of that is, let's say previously you had, we'll say the IT guy, right? The universal IT guy. You had an IT guy in the office. And if something didn't look right to Karen, she could walk down the hall and get the IT guy to come take a look at it. Well, that IT guy is not down the hall anymore. So that's a whole different ball of wax. Let's say if your IT guy, you're at a big firm Your IT guy was a phone call away. Well, what phone number is that IT guy at now? Right? These are just little things in the security world. And I don't know if a lot of firms have really thought about that. So just making sure that the people understand not only, hey, don't click on XYZ, don't do XYZ, but if you see this, this is how you get in contact with the appropriate people to take the follow-on steps. Hopefully, so nobody ends up calling me about their cyber insurance. Definitely a great idea.
That makes sense. And then I think, I'm going to steal your thunder again on here because I want to help out, Joe. I don't want to make you do too much of the hard work. I think, the final tip for firms and organizations with this is to make sure that their backups are running. Before you were always in the firm, you were always there. You could check the backups because you were supposed to check the backups were working and functioning on a regular basis. Maybe you were taking some of the physical tape backups off-site, so they weren't all in the building. They were also at one of the partners' houses in a fireproof safe. Well, now the backups could just be running, and maybe they're not running. Maybe you got to check them. Maybe you got to replace the tape. Don't forget about the importance of the backups are still running because something can still go wrong. There could be a fire. There could be a disaster. You could lose something. The worst thing that can happen is that happens and you think the backups can save you only to find out that your backup system has stopped running because you weren't in the firm. You weren't physically there checking on it. You weren't kind of switching the tapes out, doing your system. They weren't being backed up off site. You can really get hit by that. So think about that. Are the backups still running like they're supposed to be if you're still doing a physical on-site backup?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. I actually just dealt with a case where a firm, their contractor said, yes, you have backups. And then they got hit, they got breached, and guess what they didn't have appropriately? The backups to their system.
I was going to say rotisserie chicken.
They did. Oh, they also did not have rotisserie chicken. But in this particular case, the firm thought that they had nightly backups, right? So every day at like midnight, back up that system. It turns out through some misconfiguration somehow, they were still on weekly backups. So now is probably not the time you want to go back and redo an entire week's worth of work. Definitely now is not the time. So even if you have those backups going, just validate that they're actually set to the correct parameters that you've laid out. When in doubt, as a general rule, more frequent backups are better backups because that's just less stuff you're going to have to redo when, I hate to say it, invariably you're going to get breached. So, now's the time to do it, right? You hear this, you see this video, just email those guys, right? Validate what they've got, make sure everything's set up correctly, go from there. Make sure that your IT guys know, right? If you have that internal team or it's an external team or whatever it is, make sure they understand who they're supposed to contact if something goes wrong and how that whole system is actually supposed to play out, right? How they actually load those back into the system. Because you don't really want to do that when you're now paying for payroll and nobody can work because they're trying to, look up the manual on something. Not a good time to do it.
And Joel, I'll add with that from my own firsthand experience inside many CPA firms. You might not realize this, being a non-IT person, being an accountant, it is super, super easy to restore something from backup in almost every modern system that's existed in the past 15 years. If someone tells you it's going to take way too much time and energy to test the backups, they're full of it. It's literally a couple of clicks and you're done, unless your backup system is still from like 85. But past that, I see, Joe, you're nodding, right? Super easy.
Yeah, I mean, there could be firms out there with, some amalgamation of new systems and legacy systems and different operating systems and, various backups in different parts and redundancies to backups and kind of all that stuff. Hopefully those are now an anomaly. And you're right, it really should be pretty straightforward to get that system back up and operating. But trust but verify. as we say in the Navy.
Trust but verify. That's also like some good auditing advice, Joe. Maybe you should have been an auditor inside a CPA firm. We'll work on that, Joe. We can get you to pass the CPA exam. Maybe I'll sponsor you. So with that, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Checking out the Remote Work 5 cybersecurity tips to keep your organization safer when working from home. Don't forget, click to subscribe. Stay up to date with the knowledge you need to become a master of innovation. We challenge you to take action to change the world and invest in yourself.